On opportunity costs. This sounds rather a dry subject, and it is in some ways, but it's also something that I've learnt the importance of increasingly recently. It's a term, I suppose, taken from economics, which basically means that whatever you do precludes you from doing something else. So if you go for a walk, you can't be reading a book. So there is an opportunity lost for every opportunity gained. And obviously, if we apply that too much in our lives, we are constantly frustrated. When you go to a restaurant, when you have one kind of food, you've lost the opportunity to have all the other kinds of food. When you're spending time with one friend, you've lost the opportunity to spend time with the other friends, and so on. So it's a recipe for frustration on a minor level. But it's also very useful, I find, when thinking about some major ways in which we, as a nation or human beings, spend their resources. And I'll give you just one or two examples. One is to do with the cost of keeping people alive who are terminally ill and who want to die. Now, there are many people who have sincere beliefs that you should just keep people alive as long as possible, whatever it costs. It's an absolute right and it's an absolute duty. And that's all fine and good to a certain extent, but the opportunity cost has to be considered. Most of those people who are kept alive, and sometimes the costs are, £100,000 a month or whatever it is. So if it's 6 months, it's £500,000. Now the opportunity cost of that is that that £500,000 or million or more, and also for very expensive drugs, the cost of that is that money which may be taken out of the National Health Service budget is not available for anything else. And likewise, on a wider scale, the national health budget in this country, that money, huge amount of money, if you thought of the cost in other parts of the world where they don't have health, they don't have doctors, they don't have hospitals, except in a minor way, the opportunity cost of those things is huge. So you just say to someone, okay, so you want to keep someone in a vegetative state for 5 years costing £2 or £3 million, and they don't want to stay there and their relatives aren't happy that they're there. Could you think of any better way to use £2 or £3 million for the National Health Service? Even a larger example, which I've used elsewhere, is the arms trade and defence business, because there the $2.1 or $2 trillion a year that the world spends on war weapons and fighting wars and so on, the opportunity cost of that is the possibility to deal with global warming, the possibility of dealing with over half the disease and sickness in the world, the possibility of dealing with the huge malnutrition around the world, the possibility of dealing with homelessness, the possibility of dealing with refugees, and so on. Half that money spread around these other causes would make a tremendous difference. So we may think, well, we need the weapons and we're going to be attacked and so on, but think about the opportunity cost. And other ones of a more personal scale. When I became a vegetarian at university, I did it largely because I wanted a change of diet, and also my mother was leaning in that direction. But increasingly, I've moved towards trying to avoid red meats anyway, and chickens also, because the opportunity cost of eating red meat, and most meats, but that's the worst, is huge. If you eat that, you are destroying forests around the world. You are creating a huge amount of ozone gases. And so each time you eat a steak or a hamburger, the opportunity cost is felt somewhere else. And this is one of the features of opportunity costs, which is that without this concept, you tend to look at the thing in itself and you weigh it up and you think, well, I'd like that hamburger, or I'd like our government to send a few more tanks here or there. But by thinking of the side ways, costs of things, you begin to realize that there are choices involved and you have to think about them. And that's a way of thinking which I hadn't done much of until recently, but I think it is important and interesting and worth considering.